Good afternoon, everyone. This is my first YouTube video for the channel 2 Steps Forward. I am going to make it a self-help style YouTube channel where I will try to improve myself or talk about ways that I have improved myself and share with you how I did it. Now, if you have clicked on this video, it is because you want to know how to quit smoking. I am an expert on this. I have probably quit smoking about 250 times. However, I have done it successfully. 3 years ago, almost to the day, although probably not, it's probably about 2 months away from that, I finally quit smoking. And I went from about 20 a day to 0 a day, and it was very easy when I managed to do it. However, I struggled for about 7 years trying to give up and failing miserably, while obviously pissing a pile of money down the toilet with the cigarettes. So let's talk a little bit about what I tried that didn't work and my experience with smoking. So my mother was a smoker and I was a very lame child, so I always wanted to be cool, therefore I started smoking, and it turns out that smoking is very moreish once you get into it. As everyone does start, smoke at a party, smoke it when you're drinking, use it to get into the smoking area at a club because you're a bit overwhelmed by the music. And then you end up, carrying around a packet of cigarettes because you no longer want to steal off all your mates. And then because you've got a pack of cigarettes and you're waiting between buses or whatever, you start smoking cigarettes and you become a smoker. I went from a few a week to, at my worst, I think I was probably smoking about 35 a day. And my mindset at the time was, this makes my body and my blood feel like poison. I would quit once per day or twice per day, and I would throw away a pack of cigarettes and the lighter. But because I was living at the time in Vietnam, I would, on my way back home or later that day, go down to the shops, and it's very easily accessible there. I'm now in the UK, I'm from the UK, and here it's a tenner for a pack basically, and then another quid for the lighter, so you can't really do what I was doing. There, it's about £1 for a pack of 20 cigarettes and a lighter. So I would smoke in the morning, quit in the afternoon, smoke in the evening, feel like shit and quit in the evening again, and then repeat. I tried a lot of different things when I was in a lot of different life situations. So there were times when I was down and there were times when I was up, and I'd be trying different things to try and stop smoking. There was a recurring theme that I would have some success when I was feeling good, and then as soon as there'd be some sort of stress that would come along or some sort of down period that would come along, then that would negate all of the progress. Fuck it, I'll have a cigarette, it'll just be for today. You smoke a few and then you end up smoking again because you now have that access into that. If you have been trying over and over again, let me give you a list of things that I tried that didn't work. So just cutting cigarettes out. I will cut them back gradually over the next weeks. I'll smoke one less per week, and then by this time next year I won't smoke any at all. Or if I cut back by, cut back a certain amount. Going cold turkey, that didn't work. Just deciding to quit, that didn't work. Trying to introduce other things into my life, that didn't work. Being in different life situations didn't work either. It's a strange kind of addiction. You really get a taste for it. You really feel an urge for another one. However, I do want to explore those urges because they're actually not that strong. But let me give a bit more of the things I tried. There's this book called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. It was done by a hypnotist. The book kind of has these repetitive phrases in it. Once you look into it, it is kind of trying to hypnotize you into not smoking. It did work for a couple of months for me. I tried to quit with people, and that tended to be more vulnerable to relapse, because if they would relapse, I would relapse. I wrote letters to people where I would read it to them while I was crying, like, I want to stop doing this, you know, da 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 da. I'm poisoning myself. Uh, you know what I'm talking about. And there are times when you are feeling down, when it can be emotionally distressing, that you can't quit because you can't control yourself. It is an addiction at the end of the day. However, another thing that I tried was, me and my friend went on this trip. We decided at the end of the trip we wouldn't smoke. So what we would do on the trip is smoke as much as possible, not only to satisfy any cravings that we would have, but also as a send-off. I think in about 4 days we probably smoked about 250 cigarettes each, and we had a good time, but we didn't quit at the end. And that turns out to be a stupid way to overly expose yourself to something addictive. Doesn't then mean that you're not addicted to it afterwards. It actually means that you've ingrained a habit into yourself. When I quit, it was very easy. And this is a recurring pattern with a lot of people who face addictions that I know of. And I have to say, I don't have too much experience, but I've heard it anecdotally. And when I have quit things, and there's been a few other things I've quit as well, there comes a time when it does just switch. Now, mine wouldn't have done that without the strategy which I employed. The strategy I employed was this. That same friend who I went on a smoking binge with, I was sitting with him having a few beers. It was him, his wife, my mum, and me. We were all having a few cigarettes. We were talking about a friend of ours who smokes, who wanted to quit and all of these things. My friend turns around to me and says, guys, are we going to quit this? It's killing us. That wasn't the thing that cued it. We all knew that forever. We've had these discussions before. What stopped it dead and made it easy was the consequences that me and him genuinely put in place for ourselves. We said, yes, we're going to quit. How are we going to do it? Because we keep on saying this and not doing it. And we came up with some rules for ourselves, which is, from this day forwards, you can smoke as many cigarettes as you like. You're actually allowed to smoke. However, for every single cigarette you smoke for the rest of your life, you will pay the other person £50. So if they smoke, they pay you 50. If you smoke, you pay them 50. Doesn't matter if you smoke 6 in a night because you had to slip up while you were drinking. That would then be £300. This was the first consequence we put in place. If you want to follow this advice, it's very simple to do and it will work. But the one condition is you have to mean it. If you say that you're going to do it, then the next week you go out and you smoke 3 and you do not pay the money, then you have just ignored the consequence again. So it won't work. But if you say that and you mean it, that's step 1. There were 2 other things. One is we both did agree to do it together in this situation. But the main thing is he's a man that I have a lot of respect for and a lot of love for. And I made a commitment to him. Now, he made a commitment to me as well, but that was not necessarily reflective on my actions. Had he broken that, I still couldn't have reverted back because I would still have to pay him the £50 back, right? And the third thing I did, and this was surprisingly effective, when I was considering making this video, I almost left it out because it's no longer something that I think about, but it worked. And this was, I went on to Amazon, and this was maybe a few days later, and I bought myself this ring. And the ring was nothing special, about £20. It was tungsten, so it had a good weight to it. It had like a cool pattern on the outside of it, but nothing special and nothing expensive. And I decided to myself that the next time I smoke a cigarette, the next action that I will do is I will find this ring, wherever it happens to be, and I will smash it with whatever comes to hand until it's unwearable, you know. So if I only have a rock, or if I can find a hammer or something like that, and I'm not going to smash it on my finger, I'm going to stick it on the thing and smash it. And I wore this ring, I think every day for like the first 8 months or so. And now I don't actually know 100% where it is. I know roughly where it is, but I don't actually need to wear it. But at the time, there was, because of the weight of it, tungsten, I would actually recommend getting something that was tungsten. It's very durable and it's quite heavy. Because of the weight of it, it was kind of a reminder. But also, it had a story behind it. And the story was, hi, I have this cool ring and I quit smoking. If I smoke, I have to smash it again. It sounds stupid when you say it like that. Someone offers you a cigarette. Sorry, I actually quit smoking. So if you wouldn't mind, just don't offer me a cigarette again. And I actually have no problem being around people who smoke. You would be surprised. We'll talk about the actual addiction side of it and the craving side of it in a moment. They say, oh, you quit. Oh, congratulations. Like everyone who's a smoker says, well done, or that's cool, or I want to quit, or something like that when you mention it. And then you're like, I actually have this ring, and if I ever smoke again, I'm going to have to smash it. So that'll be the next thing I do. And then it's just, that story is a reminder to yourself that you don't really have the option of smoking. You're allowed to do it, but you'll be letting your friends down. You'll be paying them a big chunk of money, and you'll be smashing a ring that has sentimental value to you. And you'll have to do it in front of these people and look like a mental case smashing a ring on the floor. So it's all just reinforcing to your mind that this is no longer an option. There's a few things that you can think about in regards to this, but the tension that you feel when trying to quit smoking is a battle between your decision-making capability, your actual consciousness, and the actions that your mind wants you to take. So that's maybe a bit esoteric for this video. In terms of the actual pull towards the addiction, it's not hard to handle once you have the decision. Before that, it's impossible. Now, the actual strength of the cravings, physical nicotine withdrawal, is not what it's made out to be. If you inspect it within yourself, you know, you go a few days without a cigarette, or you go 24 hours without a cigarette, or probably 7 hours without a cigarette, maybe even less than that. But I would say 7 is where it starts to be like, instead of it being like the habit thing, it starts to be like, hey, you haven't actually smoked for ages, like get a cigarette. The strength of that craving is comparable to mild to moderate hunger in terms of its intensity and in terms of its motivation power. So it's not actually that strong a compulsion, but there are a bunch of things around that make it harder to handle. The first is, if you're not committed to facing that, or if you don't have a reason to face that, mild to moderate hunger will make you eat. And mild to moderate cigarette hunger, which is what a craving is, will make you smoke. If you have, you know, the thing is, I had easy access to it when I quit. It was no issue for me to stop. But you understand that if you have cake in the fridge and you feel mild to moderately hungry and you have nothing else around, and you're not specifically on a diet because you need to whatever, you will eat that cake. And the same is true of cigarettes if you have mild hunger. But it's very easy to overcome those impulses if you give yourself a reason to, which is why the rest of the things is set up. Now, there are other aspects to smoking. There's the socialization and the break that you get outside. It's a mental break, it's a physical break as well. It's quite a refreshing feeling. Now, I smoked like a psychopath, so I smoked like indoors, not even taking a break, just feeling stressed out and hating myself while I was doing it. That's how you end up smoking 35 a day if you're doing it. But the people who smoke a moderate amount, so 7, 10, 5, whatever, and they take a step outside and they, you know, speak to a friend or they call someone or something like that, the non-psychopath way to do it, there is a real value in that. And I also got that. And it's true that happens when you're out drinking with friends, or if you're, you know, out at any kind of party or a social event and stuff like that. There's a separate social circle reserved for smokers connecting with each other. And it is a social lubricant in some strange way. And the other thing is, it's something tactile to play with, like the actual process of getting out the cigarette, putting it in your hand, lighting it, smoking it. You know, this is all satisfying in a way that is normally overlooked. The ring helped with that. You know, just the little like play with the ring or like pull it up and down and things like that. That helped with the tactile side of things. And in terms of the social thing, you don't really have to sacrifice it. You can still go out into the smoking area, you can still chat to people, or you can still take a 5-minute break away. It doesn't feel the same, but you can connect with smokers just as easily. You're like, oh, hey, I quit, I've got this ring and all of that stuff. And then you just chat in the same way that you would before. And then you've got the tactile thing to play with. So this is the way that I have quit smoking twice. So I, unfortunately, am a bit of a shite bag. I agree with my friend to quit smoking cigarettes. For every cigarette I smoked for the rest of my life, I would pay him his 50 euros. Now, what I did about 2 years later, when I was out in Vietnam again for a slightly shorter trip, my mind tricked me. Or I allowed myself to be tricked, or I was basically weak and stupid for a while. So let me not say that my mind tricked me. That's a bit too woo-woo. What happened is they have this water tobacco pipe called a tuk lao. It's just, imagine a bong, basically. You stick some super strong tobacco in the end of it. You go, breathe it all in, and you get a massive head rush for about a minute, where you feel amazing for about a minute. I was in a bit of a bad place for some of my time when I was in Vietnam, and I was mainly just a bit bored. And so I did that once or twice just to kind of ingratiate myself with some people, and then ended up picking up a habit of it. And in my mind, I disconnected this from my agreement to stop smoking, because while it was tobacco, it wasn't cigarettes. And over a few months, my addiction built up to the point when, instead of doing this once a week, something like that, I'm probably doing 4 or 5 or 6 of these things a day and going out of my way quite a long way to go and do it. Because it's not something you can just have at home, or you could, but I refuse to get the paraphernalia for it. Then, when I came back to the UK, I again made the same leap of, I now have a nicotine addiction, right? I've been doing this for a few months, and it's quite an intense amount of nicotine. So I come back and I've got these cravings, and I'm interacting with some people who are using vapes. And so I take a few vapes, I get a few vapes, I then find out where the local vape shop is. And then for a few months, I'm using these vapes, you know, and to be honest, like, again, like a psychopath, like getting through 2 of them a day or anything like that. I have an addictive personality. You may not be as extreme as me. And it just got to the point where I was like, I just woke up one day and I was like, And I tried to quit these things as well. Don't get me wrong. So it wasn't that I'm now some master at quitting these things. I'd throw the vapes away, throw them out. I remember throwing one out of my window and then later that day going down and looking in the grass patch out there to find it and just or like, throw it in the bin and then take it out of the bin, clean it off and, again, like this is not, I am not some amazing, but when I quit again, it was easy. And I phoned up my friend and I said, I've been cheating. From now on, we're going to update the agreement and it's going to be, I'm not allowed to use these vapes. If I do use one, then per vape that I use, I will pay you £50. And from struggling and feeling bad about myself for quitting, I have not bought a vape. I have not smoked a vape. It took me about 1 day to feel completely fine about it. That day I'd been using one, and you know that it's harder when you use one in the day to then quit that same day. We know that, okay? I threw that vape away, which is hard as well because it's not finished. I threw that vape away. And then I told myself when I had the thoughts like, I want it for the rest of that day, it's like, but that's not an option anymore, right? You've made that decision. Like from now on, that's going to cost you 50 quid. And I can't afford to be paying out hundreds of pounds a week to my friend just because I want to be sucking on some strawberry vape. That's a retarded way to spend money. That's a terrible, terrible way to spend money. And you don't want to do it. It's and then do that 3 times. Reinforce that thought process. Tag that on. Like, I want a vape, but right, to that thought, you're basically addressing it. That's no longer an option, right? We've finished with that now. There's no point in doing that because that works. There is a voice inside of you that is telling you, yeah, but go on, like, we'll quit tomorrow. And this is a common thing. You will see this everywhere with many things. Don't exercise today, exercise tomorrow. Don't, whatever it is, don't apply for other jobs now because you're too tired and you've had a long day and all of this. Like, do it tomorrow. This is your mind speak. And I have plenty of issues when it comes to productivity. I clearly have some issues when it comes to like addiction and things like that. But figuring out that this voice in your head, it's the voice of a motivation inside of you. It's not your voice. It is the voice of a drive. So the voice of hunger says eat food. The voice of thirst says drink water. The voice of this addiction says, yeah, but get a vape. No one's gonna know. It'll be fine. But you want it, so, and what's the harm? And today's been hard and now you're stressed out and all of this. But if you say to that voice, yeah, but that's not an option. You might want that, but that's not actually going to happen because now the negative consequences of doing that, which I mean, and I will pay that £50 should I use a vape. Look, after 2.5 years of not smoking, I was on a trip, I drank, I smoked 3 cigarettes, I paid my £150. I haven't smoked any other cigarettes. Okay? It's as if you just commit to that, it's easy. That's what I have to say on it. There are probably other things that I have missed, But if you wanted a guide and a little bit of motivation, then there you go. My recommendation is contact someone you respect, make an agreement with them that you are no longer going to smoke. And if you do, then here are the consequences. I suggest putting a stinging monetary consequence on it, as well as getting yourself some sort of tactile thing that you can touch. I think the ring is a perfect idea, that you will have to destroy, give away, whatever, should you smoke again. It's very easy, but it's the hardest thing to do in the world unless you do it that way. This is the only way that I've found that makes it just weight off your shoulders. The cravings don't matter at all. The ability to quit is easy. I would really describe it as the easiest thing I've done in my life. Really. And you feel good about it once you do it. It's just every other method I tried, it not only was hard, it didn't work. And then it made me feel shit about myself afterwards because I was a bit of a failure in that situation. So, best of luck. Best of luck.